Do you know what the most dangerous moment on a Hollywood set really is? It's not a stunt gone wrong. It's not a lighting rig falling from the rafters. It's not even an actor forgetting their lines. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. It's the moment silence falls so suddenly, so heavily, that you can practically hear tension crackle in the air. That was the moment crew members at Amazon MGM Studios found themselves in. Just minutes before Lily Collins walked off set with tears burning in her eyes and fury tightening her jaw. And according to insiders, that moment was triggered by Meghan Markle herself. Now, before you think this was just another harmless celebrity misunderstanding, no. This wasn't a minor miscommunication. This wasn't a subtle eye roll. This wasn't a polite disagreement over creative direction. What happened was personal, cutting, sharp enough that even people who had worked in this industry for decades, people who had witnessed screaming matches between Oscar winners and breakdowns from directors under pressure, said they had never felt a chill quite like this one. And the real shock? It didn't happen during a tense scene, or during a high-stakes rehearsal, or even during a chaotic moment between takes. It happened before the cameras even started rolling. So here's the question you need to ask yourself. What could Meghan Markle, someone making a highly scrutinized return to acting, possibly have said to Lily Collins that was so humiliating, so unexpectedly cruel, so pointedly personal, that the Emily in Paris star decided she was done? Not later, not after a meeting, not after talking to her team, but right there, right then, in the middle of Amazon MGM Studios' most anticipated film set of the year, close personal friends. And why, hours later, were studio executives scrambling behind closed doors? Why were crew members being pulled aside to give statements? Why were publicists whispering in hallways, debating possible damage control strategies? And why did security have to escort one person off the premises? You're about to find out. But to truly understand the explosion that happened that day, you need to know how the fuse was lit long before Lily stormed off set. Because this wasn't a single insult. It wasn't an isolated event. It was the final spark in a chain reaction that had been slowly building, unnoticed by most, but obvious to the few people paying close attention. Let's rewind. Meghan Markle's return to acting was already one of the most divisive moves in Hollywood. Some executives were excited. The name recognition, the media pull, the massive audience guaranteed to tune in, the global conversations, the headlines. Others were concerned. Past staff allegations, claims of diva behavior, stories of pushy demands, public polarization, and rumors, lots of them. Hollywood thrives on drama, but it fears unpredictability. And Meghan's comeback? It carried both. Close personal friends was supposed to be her fresh start, her redemption arc, her moment to reclaim her identity outside royal headlines and political arguments and endless tabloid speculation. This was the moment she would remind the world she was an actress first. A performer, a professional, someone who knew the craft. Or at least, that's what the studio hoped. Then there was Lily Collins, Hollywood's sweetheart. The kind of celebrity who rarely finds herself in controversy. The kind of actress who shows up early, knows her lines, thanks the crew, and brings snacks to the makeup trailer. Someone universally respected. So when people heard Lily and Meghan would be working together, the general reaction was curiosity. How would their personalities mesh? Would Meghan's strong presence balance Lily's softer approach? Would the contrasting energies create on-screen magic? Behind the scenes, however, a different question was being asked quietly. Would Meghan's return overshadow Lily? Or would Lily's flawless reputation overshadow Meghan? And more importantly, did Meghan care? According to insiders, the tension began days before the blow-up. Nothing explosive, nothing headline-worthy, just little things. Strange vibes, odd glances, overheard whispers, moments that felt off. Moments like Meghan arriving with a larger entourage than the studio approved. Moments like Meghan's stylist loudly critiquing wardrobe choices that weren't even hers. Moments like Lily's trailer mysteriously being moved due to space constraints, even though other actors noticed there had been no real constraints at all. Moments Lily brushed off. Moments crew members didn't. Moments that made people watch Meghan closely. Why? Because small ripples become waves, and waves become storms. The morning of the infamous incident began like any other day on set. Deliveries arriving, lights warming up, Actors rehearsing lines. Cameras being positioned. Coffee cups everywhere. The usual hum of production, chaotic, messy, structured, beautiful in its own way. Nothing seemed wrong. Not yet. But some people noticed Meghan's mood when she stepped out of her trailer. Eyes sharp, jaw tight. A tension in her shoulders that suggested she had already been irritated by something, or someone. Rumor was she had just come from a call with a producer. Another rumor said she was frustrated about her script notes not being implemented quickly enough. Another rumor suggested she didn't like her wardrobe options and wanted last-minute changes. Hollywood sets are hotbeds of speculation. But sometimes, rumors hint at reality. Across the lot, Lily Collins was finishing her makeup, smiling politely at everyone who passed by, unaware of the emotional hurricane drifting closer. That's when the first spark happened. Small, barely audible, but enough to shift the energy. Meghan's stylist walked by Lily's team and made a joke. A subtle, backhanded remark. Something about Lily's look being too basic for someone trying to compete with Meghan. A simple line, delivered casually, but powerful enough to send a ripple through the trailer hallway. Someone told Lily. She shrugged, laughed it off, said, "It's fine. I don't take that personally." But she shouldn't have had to. And crew members knew it. Still, that wasn't the breaking point. Not even close. The breaking point came later, on set, when Meghan approached Lily for the first time that day. Witnesses say Meghan's tone seemed friendly at first, almost overly friendly. The kind of friendliness that feels like a performance. The kind that hides something underneath. Then came the comment. The comment that everyone remembers. The comment that changed the temperature of the room. The comment that made Lily's expression drop instantly. The comment that made two makeup artists freeze mid-step. The comment that made a production assistant quietly text someone. You won't believe what Meghan just said. But before we get to that moment, the line itself. You need to understand why it hit so deep. Why it shook Lily to her core. Why it triggered such an emotional reaction that she didn't just walk away. She walked away publicly, making sure Meghan knew exactly why. Because the insult wasn't about acting. It wasn't about costumes. It wasn't about the script. It wasn't even about the characters. It was about Lily. Her identity. Her career. Her worth. Her place on that set. And Meghan delivered it with absolute precision. It wasn't loud. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't dramatic in tone. But it was devastating in meaning. And that is where this story truly begins. Right in the center of that emotional explosion. Because when Meghan said what she said, everyone felt it. Everyone heard it. Everyone knew this wasn't something that could be brushed under a rug or written off as a misunderstanding. It was too pointed, too specific, too revealing. And for Lily Collins, it was the final straw. She stood there, stunned. Her lips parted slightly, not in shock, but in realization. Her eyes changed. Her energy shifted. Her entire demeanor transformed in a single instant. Then she turned, walked straight past Meghan, past the camera crew, past the director, and right off the set. Silence followed. A silence so heavy that even the air felt uncomfortable. But here's the part no one expected. Lily didn't go to her trailer. She didn't retreat to collect herself. She didn't ask for privacy. She headed straight to leadership, straight to the people in charge, straight to the people who could do something. And that's when the real chaos began. But what exactly did Meghan say? What pushed Lily to the edge? What triggered a full studio investigation? What led to emergency meetings, conflicting statements, PR panic, and an apology attempt that only made things worse? You're about to find out. Because what came next would change everything. And no one saw it coming. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt that something was wrong? You don't see anything unusual. No one is shouting. No one is throwing chairs or slamming doors. But your gut tells you that the energy isn't normal, that something invisible is lurking just beneath the surface. That was the exact feeling crew members described when they arrived on set that morning. They said the air felt too still, too stiff, too charged. Something was brewing. Something subtle. Something dangerous. And most people didn't even realize it until it was already too late. But for those paying attention, those who watched faces carefully, listened to tones quietly, and sensed shifts instinctively, the signs were there long before Lily Collins decided she'd had enough. It began before sunrise, when most sets feel like a strange combination of chaos and calm. Workers unload equipment. Trucks beep as they reverse. Someone yells about a missing cable. Someone else complains about the coffee being too weak. It's the usual messy ballet of filmmaking, unpredictable but familiar. Except this time, layered beneath the noise, people notice small, strange things happening. Little details that seemed harmless at first, like the lighting assistant whispering to another crew member that Meghan's trailer had been rearranged again at the last minute for special requests. Or the makeup artist who muttered under her breath that today was going to be one of those days because she had already received 3 contradictory instructions from Meghan's team before even stepping inside the building. Or the production assistant who looked unusually stressed for 6 in the morning because, according to her, the energy feels off today, something's coming. At first, these small comments floated around the set like faint radio static, noticed by a few, ignored by many. But as more crew members arrived, the static grew louder, sharper, more insistent. People sensed tension, even if they couldn't name it. Yet ironically, Meghan Markle herself seemed unaware of the storm forming around her. Or perhaps, and this is the question insiders still debate, perhaps she sensed it too, and that's exactly why she appeared increasingly on edge. Meghan's arrival that morning caught everyone's attention, though no one dared to openly react. Normally, actors arrive in quiet waves, slipping into their trailers without much commotion. But Meghan's entrances were events. She stepped out of her SUV flanked by her stylist, her PR assistant, her personal aide, and a driver waiting for further instructions, an entourage much larger than what the studio officially approved. It wasn't the number of people that created the tension, it was the way everyone else reacted to her arrival. Crew members who had been chatting fell silent. Production staff subtly stepped aside. Makeup artists exchanged glances. It wasn't fear, not exactly. It was more like a collective tightening, a bracing for impact, a preparation for a day that, instinctively, everyone knew would not be normal. But the strangest part? Meghan didn't say anything particularly dramatic. She didn't yell. She didn't complain. She didn't make demands right away. Instead, she offered a polite smile, nodded at a few people, and walked toward her trailer. And that's what made the tension even more unsettling. It wasn't what she did, it was what everyone expected her to do. The past few days had shown them enough glimpses of unpredictability to make them cautious. They watched the way her shoulders held firm, the way her gaze darted toward the wardrobe department, the way her hand tightened around her phone. Something was brewing inside her, and though no one knew what it was, they sensed it would reveal itself soon enough. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of the lot, Lily Collins was already in her makeup chair, completely oblivious to the emotional thundercloud inching its way toward her. Lily had always been the kind of actress who made life easier, not harder. She greeted the morning crew warmly, complimented a hairstylist on her earrings, asked about people's families, and brought pastries for the team because she knew call times were brutal. She wasn't putting on an act. People knew this was genuinely who she was. And maybe that was part of the problem. Lily's presence highlighted the contrast between her natural warmth and Meghan's more calculated persona. Not that Meghan wasn't capable of kindness, but her kindness felt structured, intentional, deliberate. Lily's kindness felt effortless, like breathing. Why does that matter? Because in Hollywood, personality clashes rarely erupt over massive issues. Instead, they begin with small differences, subtle friction. One person's authenticity clashing with another person's intensity. And that friction was now spreading through the set like an invisible electric charge. The first measurable spark came around 7:45 a.m. when Meghan's stylist, a woman notorious for blunt commentary, walked past Lily's team and made a snide remark, one small enough to be brushed off, yet sharp enough to sting. Eyewitnesses said the stylist glanced at Lily's outfit for the morning's rehearsal, smirked, and muttered something along the lines of, "Cute how some people still dress like they're on a sitcom from 2012. She laughed. Someone else laughed. And though the comment wasn't directed at Lily by name, everyone standing there knew exactly who she was referencing. The moment traveled quickly. Someone told Lily within minutes, but Lily didn't react with anger or indignation. She simply sighed and said, "It's okay. We all have bad days." But it wasn't really okay. Not because Lily couldn't handle a petty remark. She could. It was the principle behind it. Why make the comment at all? Why inject negativity into a morning that had barely begun? Why criticize someone who had done nothing but show up to work like a professional? But again, this wasn't the breaking point. It was just the first shadow stretching across the day. The second shadow appeared when Meghan asked for an unscheduled wardrobe adjustment. Nothing major, just a change of color, a different cut of blouse, a different pair of shoes. Usually, this wouldn't be an issue. Actors adjust wardrobe all the time. But the timing was suspicious. The wardrobe changes affected Lily's costume as well, requiring her team to scramble to find something that would still complement the scene's overall aesthetic. It wasn't blatant sabotage, no one thought that. It was more like carelessness, or disregard, or, as one crew member described it, Meghan acting like the entire set revolved around her. Still, Lily stayed calm. She didn't complain. She didn't show frustration. She didn't even ask questions. But inside, the pressure was starting to build. Pressure she kept hidden behind her habitual soft smile. That pressure turned into something heavier when Lily crossed paths with Meghan near the craft services table. According to witnesses, Meghan gave Lily a long, slow glance. One of those looks that seemed friendly on the surface but carried an undercurrent of something colder, something sharp. Meghan said, "Morning," but there was something about her tone, tight, clipped, almost rehearsed, that made Lily pause for half a second. Most people wouldn't have noticed, but Lily did. She felt it, and maybe that's when she realized something wasn't right. Something about the energy, something about the mood, something about Meghan. Still, Lily tried to stay focused. She joined the director for a quick line run-through, ignoring the murmurs behind her. Meghan disappeared into another hallway with her assistant, and for a brief moment, it seemed like the day might smooth out. But the real storm was only 30 minutes away. That storm began with a single message delivered to the director. Meghan needed to see him immediately. It wasn't framed as a request. It was framed as an expectation. The director, already juggling camera tests, lighting adjustments, and actor coordination, reluctantly stepped away to meet her. Insiders say Meghan complained her character's motivations weren't being honored and that the lines felt limiting to her creative vision. She wanted changes. She wanted rewrites. She wanted control. And one of those changes? It directly affected Lily's character. The director tried to compromise. He tried to negotiate. He tried to calm Meghan's rising agitation. But she wasn't settling. Not that morning. Not with that energy. Not with the tension already tightening around her. Meanwhile, Lily was called to set for blocking. She walked in expecting a normal rehearsal. Instead, she walked into a room full of tension so thick she almost felt it physically pressing against her chest. Everyone felt it. Everyone saw it. Everyone sensed the emotional collision about to happen. That's when Meghan entered the soundstage. Her footsteps echoed. Her expression was unreadable. Her silence was louder than any argument. She approached Lily slowly, deliberately, stopping just close enough for her voice to land like a whisper and a weapon at the same time. What she said next would shatter everything. But what came after? That is where everything truly spiraled. And what Meghan said, her exact words that froze the set, stunned the crew, and pushed Lily Collins to her breaking point, comes next. Have you ever witnessed a moment that seemed small on the surface, almost insignificant, but later, when everything finally exploded, you realized that tiny moment was the first crack in the glass? The first warning? The first tremor before the earthquake? That's exactly what happened the morning Meghan Markle's stylist opened her mouth and unknowingly lit the fuse that would later detonate across the entire Amazon MGM Studios set. Because what she said that day wasn't loud, wasn't vulgar, wasn't even obviously malicious. It was something subtler, something more insidious, something delivered with a kind of polished cruelty that people in Hollywood recognize instantly. The kind of casual venom that slips out like a joke, but leaves a bruise. And what made it worse is that it didn't even come from Meghan directly. It came from someone representing her. Someone who reflected her energy, her expectations, her tone. Someone who embodied the hierarchy that Meghan brought with her everywhere she went. And crew members noticed. They always do. The incident happened near wardrobe, a buzzing hive of actors, stylists, makeup artists, seamstresses, and assistants juggling garments, accessories, last-minute repairs, and endless coffee cups. It's the place where most actors laugh, vent, rehearse, or quietly wake up. For Lily Collins, it was her safe zone, somewhere she genuinely enjoyed being. But that morning, something felt different. The energy around wardrobe was tense, condensed, almost vibrating with expectation. And walking right into the center of that vibration was Meghan's stylist, a woman known for her confidence, bold fashion choices, and even bolder commentary. She strutted through the hallway like she owned it, sunglasses still on despite being indoors, holding her clipboard like it was a royal decree. And then she saw Lily Collins. Now here's the thing. Lily's outfit wasn't even controversial. It was exactly what the scene required: simple, grounded, emotionally neutral. Because this wasn't a glamorous moment in the film. This was a transitional scene, a dialogue-driven sequence, and Lily's outfit reflected that. But for Meghan's stylist, it became the target of her morning frustration. She walked past Lily's team, paused just long enough to smirk at Lily's top, and said the line that started everything. "She's wearing that? Wow. I guess some people still dress like they're trying to get cast on a family sitcom from 2012. She didn't whisper it. She didn't mask it. She said it loud enough for half the hallway to hear. And then she laughed. That sharp, dismissive Hollywood laugh. The kind that slices through the room like a blade coated in perfume and arrogance. And someone else laughed too, not because the joke was funny, but because Hollywood sometimes creates these weird, uncomfortable reflexes in people where they laugh to fit in, laugh to avoid conflict, laugh because someone powerful wants them to laugh. The moment didn't last long. It came and went in seconds. But those seconds mattered. Because a few feet away, Lily's makeup assistant heard the comment. And she froze. Then another stylist froze. Then a production assistant blinked, unsure of how to react. And in that frozen moment, everyone silently agreed. This wasn't just a joke. It was a message, a warning, a tone setter. And it came from Meghan's camp. Someone told Lily. They always do. Hollywood is like a small town in a giant city. Secrets travel faster than sound. Lily listened calmly, her face softening only slightly, her shoulders dipping just an inch. She didn't lash out. She didn't roll her eyes. She didn't complain. She simply said, "It's fine. Don't worry about it." But it wasn't fine. And deep down, Lily knew it wasn't about the outfit. It was about dominance. About territory. About someone trying to establish a hierarchy before the day even began. But the stylist's comment, petty as it was only the beginning. Because what happened next revealed something far more troubling. The moment Meghan herself stepped into the energy her stylist had created. It started with a silence so sharp it buzzed. People described it as the hallway moment, like the last breath before a thunderclap. Meghan walked in wearing a crisp outfit, hair immaculate, expression unreadable. She wasn't upset yet. She wasn't angry. But she wasn't relaxed either. She carried a tension in her posture that suggested irritation had already seeped into her morning. Maybe it was a phone call. Maybe it was a schedule issue. Maybe it was the fact that on this set, she wasn't the unquestioned star. She was part of a cast, part of a team, and part of a story that required collaboration. Or maybe she had already heard what her stylist said. And maybe she didn't disagree. When Meghan walked by Lily's team, she didn't stop. She didn't greet them. She just looked. One long look. Slow. Calculated. The kind of look that leaves people wondering whether they've done something wrong even when they haven't. It wasn't rude per se. Meghan didn't say a word. But sometimes silence can be louder than any insult. But here's the contradiction that made everything worse. Moments later, Meghan circled back, approached Lily with a too bright smile, and delivered a greeting that felt overly enthusiastic. "Good morning," she said. Too warm. Too sudden. Too performed. And Lily noticed the contradiction instantly, the cold silence followed by a forced friendliness. Two opposite tones delivered minutes apart. Two opposing signals. Two clashing energies. And Lily, who had always been intuitive and emotionally sensitive, felt something shift inside her. But even then, even with the tension rising, even with Meghan's dual energy pressing against her, Lily tried to stay professional. She focused on her script. She rehearsed her lines. She mentally prepared for the rehearsal. And she ignored the stylist's lingering smirk from across the hall. But ignoring negativity doesn't erase it. It just delays its impact. The next blow came when Lily's assistant received a sudden notification from wardrobe. New costume pairing needed. Meghan requested color adjustments. Now, normally, this might not raise eyebrows. Actors request changes all the time. But this one was different. Meghan's wardrobe change directly affected Lily's outfit because their scene required visual balance. Lily's team had to scramble to adjust last minute. They rushed, they sorted through options, they tried everything to avoid delaying the schedule. But they couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't about fashion, it was about control, about rearranging the day's dynamic, about asserting dominance over space that had been running smoothly before Meghan arrived. And again, Lily didn't complain. She didn't pout. She didn't get emotional. She simply adapted, proving once again why she was loved by crew members everywhere she worked. But the quiet part, the part no one said out loud, was that Lily's kindness was being taken advantage of. Her professionalism was being misinterpreted as weakness. And in Hollywood, weakness invites attack. Everything escalated when Meghan's stylist returned, not to apologize, not to clarify, but to double down. She made another comment, louder this time, pretending it was a joke. Well, at least with Meghan in the scene, the camera will have something interesting to look at. That one wasn't subtle. That one wasn't disguised. That one hit the room like a punch. Lily heard that one. This time she didn't shrug. She didn't smile. She didn't excuse it. She simply stood still, processing the remark, letting it settle into her chest like a stone. Not because she cared about the stylist's opinion, but because she sensed it wasn't just the stylist talking. It was the culture surrounding Meghan, the environment she brought, the unspoken hierarchy she expected. Now here's where things took a darker turn. Someone told Meghan what her stylist said, and Meghan didn't correct her. She didn't scold her. She didn't tell her to stop making comments. Instead, according to people nearby, Meghan gave a short laugh. A dry, dismissive, almost amused laugh. The kind that says, "I don't care enough to stop this." And that moment revealed more than any comment ever could. Because sometimes cruelty isn't delivered directly. Sometimes it's delivered through silence. Through inaction. Through complicity. The atmosphere changed instantly. The crew felt the temperature drop. People avoided eye contact. Assistants pretended to check their phones. The wardrobe team suddenly became fascinated with invisible lint on jackets. Because everyone knew what that laugh meant. It meant Meghan wasn't distancing herself from the insult. She was validating it. This was the true beginning of the meltdown. Because that's when Lily's energy changed. Not outwardly. Not dramatically. Not publicly. But something inside her shifted. Her posture straightened. Her expression sharpened. Her tone grew quieter, colder, more controlled. Crew members later said that in that moment, they knew something big was coming. They didn't know what. They didn't know when. But they knew. The tension slid into the air like smoke. Thick, heavy, suffocating. And everyone sensed the set was about to tilt from uncomfortable to volatile. And that shift, this invisible turning of emotional tides, set the stage for the single sentence Meghan Markle said next. The one that would shatter the already fragile calm and push Lily Collins toward the breaking point she never saw coming. Because after this moment, the moment Meghan allowed the culture around her to take aim, she approached Lily directly. And what she said, what she delivered with a smile, but filled with razor edges, changed everything. And it was only the beginning. What Meghan said next was the knife. And now? Now we're walking straight into it. Have you ever witnessed a moment where a single sentence, just one, completely changes the temperature of a room? Not an argument. Not a heated exchange. Not a fight. Just a sentence. A sentence delivered calmly, quietly, almost sweetly, and yet it slices deeper than a scream ever could. That's what happened when Meghan Markle approached Lily Collins that morning on the Amazon MGM Studios set. That's when the air shifted from mildly tense to dangerously electrified. That's when crew members would later say, "Oh yes, that was the moment." That's when everything truly started to collapse. Because up to that point, everything could have still been salvaged. The stylist's comment could have been brushed off. The wardrobe disruption could have been forgiven. Meghan's cold then friendly contradiction could have been chalked up to stress. There were 100 off-ramps from disaster. But Meghan didn't take any of them. Instead, she walked straight toward the emotional cliff and took Lily with her. The moment unfolded in slow motion. Lily was reviewing her lines with a production assistant, calmly reciting the dialogue, making small adjustments. She was focused, professional, in her usual rhythm. Crew members were rearranging lights, adjusting microphones, preparing the blocking markers on the floor. The room buzzed with the normal low hum of productivity. But then the hum quieted. Not because anyone stopped working, but because everyone noticed Meghan approaching. Her entrance wasn't loud. She didn't demand attention. She didn't clear her throat. She didn't announce herself. But people felt her presence the same way you feel a sudden drop in temperature. Instantly and everywhere. A slow silence rippled outward, subtle but undeniable, as she crossed the room toward Lily. Lily noticed her halfway through a line. She paused, looked up, and gave a small polite smile. The kind you give someone when you're trying to maintain peace, even though you're unsure of their intentions. Meghan smiled back, but her smile was different. It wasn't warm. It wasn't cold. It was precise, contained, mechanical, a smile that felt carefully placed, like an accessory chosen for a specific scene. "Hey, Lily," Meghan said softly, almost too softly, as if she wanted the room to strain to hear her. And they did. People leaned just slightly, just enough to catch the tone. Lily straightened a little, nodding gently, her expression calm and neutral. She wasn't nervous yet, just cautious. She could feel the emotional mismatch between them, but she didn't expect what was coming. Meghan tilted her head, studying Lily with a curious expression, an expression that looked innocent at first glance. But there was a flicker in her eyes, a calculating glimmer that made several crew members shift uncomfortably. It was the look of someone deciding whether to say something subtle or something lethal. Then Meghan delivered the line that stunned the room, the line that cut deeper than anything her stylist had said earlier, the line that made Lily's heart drop into her stomach. "You know," Meghan said with a soft, almost sympathetic sigh, "you really don't have to try so hard. No one expects you to match my presence. It's totally fine. Just be you." The room froze. Not a gasp, not a shout, not a movement, just stillness, because everyone understood what the words really meant. This wasn't encouragement. This wasn't reassurance. This was a surgical strike disguised as a compliment. It was the Hollywood equivalent of saying, "You're not on my level. You're beneath me. You're lucky to be here. Know your place." Meghan delivered it with softness, but softness can be deadly when wrapped around condescension. And Lily felt it instantly. Her expression didn't change dramatically. She didn't widen her eyes or drop her jaw or snap back, but her posture shifted, subtly but tellingly. Her shoulders stiffened. Her breathing tightened. Her eyes dimmed slightly, as if absorbing the blow before she could fully process it. Because who expects something like that? Who expects to be told, in front of crew, in front of colleagues, in front of people who respect you, that your very existence is a competition you are losing without even trying? Crew members later described the moment the way people describe watching a glass fall in slow motion. Helpless, inevitable, heartbreaking. They saw the moment Lily's confidence flickered. They saw the moment her kindness was repaid with cruelty. They saw the moment the tone of the day shifted from uncomfortable to toxic. And they saw something else too, something chilling. They saw Meghan's expression after she said the line. She didn't look shocked at her own words. She didn't look apologetic. She didn't look accidentally rude. She looked satisfied. Not smug. Not gloating. Just satisfied. As if she had finally released whatever tension had been building inside her since she arrived on set. Lily swallowed hard, steadying herself. She could feel dozens of eyes on her, waiting to see how she'd respond. She forced a small smile, not because she felt Oklahoma, but because she wanted to maintain professionalism. "I'm not trying to match anything," she said quietly, her voice calm but thinner than usual. "I'm just doing my job." But Meghan wasn't finished. And this is where everything crossed the line. She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice so only Lily and those closest could hear, but enough that the sentence would still travel across the room like wildfire. "That's adorable," Meghan whispered with a light laugh. "Really, you're doing great for someone with your range." Range. The one word no actor wants weaponized against them. The ultimate insult in the industry. A euphemism for limited talent. A direct attack on an actor's skill, credibility, and identity. And coming from Meghan, who was returning to acting after years away, not exactly known for award-winning performances, it was astonishing in its boldness. Lily's breath caught. Her eyes widened, not dramatically, but painfully, vulnerably. Her heart dropped further, the emotional weight finally landing on her shoulders. One crew member said it was like watching someone get punched in the chest without warning. Another said Lily looked like she'd been stabbed with silk, quiet but devastating. Another said that in that moment, they saw Lily's entire spirit retreat behind her ribs. But here's the twist that made the moment even more unbearable. People expected Meghan to walk away after delivering the blow. They expected her to end the conversation with the insult. They expected her to leave the damage behind her like emotional debris. Instead, Meghan paused. She waited. She watched Lily absorb the hit. Then she smiled, small, satisfied, victorious, and added one final line that would send a shockwave across the set. "Don't worry. You'll grow into your role eventually. Just follow my lead." That was it. That was the sentence that shattered the room. Because this wasn't about a wardrobe joke. This wasn't about a stylist snark. This wasn't about tension. This was about humiliation. About ego. About dominance. About Meghan asserting herself as the sun everyone else should orbit around. Lily stood there, frozen, her throat tightening, her eyes blinking rapidly, her breath shallow. She looked like she wanted to speak, wanted to push back, wanted to defend herself, but the words wouldn't come. Not because she didn't have them, but because she was blindsided. A crew member later said, "You could see her spirit crack in real time." Another said, "It was like watching a balloon deflate slowly, painfully." Another whispered, "I've never seen Lily look so hurt." But here's the part no one expected. This wasn't even the worst moment of the day. Because the real explosion, the moment that would be talked about for days, the moment executives would panic over, the moment that would lead to emergency meetings, was still ahead. And the next thing Meghan said? The next thing she unleashed? That was the moment that turned a simmer into a full-blown firestorm. Because if you thought her comments about Lily's presence and range were harsh, you haven't heard anything yet. Have you ever been in a room where you could physically feel a mood shift? Where one sentence, just one, drops into the atmosphere like a stone into still water, sending ripples of discomfort across every surface, every person, every corner. That was exactly what happened after Meghan's cutting remark about Lily's range. It was as if the room exhaled in shock, but then held its breath, terrified of what might come next. People didn't look at one another. They looked away from one another, eyes darting down to clipboards, scripts, shoelaces, anything to avoid being caught in the emotional crossfire. But the silence that followed wasn't the quiet of peace. It was the quiet of something waiting to combust. Crew members later said it felt like standing in the middle of a thunderstorm, watching lightning strike a foot away, waiting for the thunder that never arrived. Because the thunder, the real blow-up, was still on its way. Lily stood there, stunned, trying to swallow the emotional hit she hadn't prepared for. She wasn't someone who cried easily. She wasn't fragile. She wasn't dramatic. She was steady, solid, grounded. But in that moment, something inside her cracked in a way she couldn't hide. Her hands trembled ever so slightly. Her lips parted as if to speak, then closed again because she couldn't find the words. Her throat tightened, burning, trying to keep her composure in front of dozens of eyes pretending not to look, but absolutely looking. And she knew, that if she said anything now, if she reacted emotionally, it would only feed into whatever narrative Meghan was already building about her. But here's the part that made this moment surreal. Even though Lily's silence screamed vulnerability, Meghan wasn't finished. She didn't pause. She didn't step back. She didn't soften. Instead, she leaned in, as if sensing weakness, and delivered a final remark that wasn't just condescending, it was personal. "Honestly," Meghan said, lowering her voice in a tone that dripped with disguised pity, "you remind me of myself years ago, before I really understood the difference between being a lead and being, well, support." The words hit Lily like a slap that echoed without sound. Her chest tightened. Her eyes blinked rapidly to hold back the sting of tears she refused to shed. The implication was obvious, brutal, and designed to be undeniable. "You're beneath me." And Meghan said it with the casual ease of someone commenting on the weather. That moment, the exact second those words left Meghan's lips, would later be described by crew members as the emotional breaking point, the invisible line that split the morning into before and after. Because for the first time all day, Lily Collins looked genuinely shaken. Not upset, not angry, shaken. She stepped back, just slightly, as if the emotional blow physically pushed her. She forced a breath she didn't feel ready to take, tried to steady herself, tried to anchor her voice, but every attempt slipped through her fingers like sand. She wasn't even upset at the insult itself, it was the intent behind it. The calculation, the precision, the deliberate choice to cut where it would hurt most. Lily wasn't used to malice on set. She wasn't used to cruelty disguised as professionalism. And she definitely wasn't used to being belittled by someone who hadn't even earned the respect that Lily had built over years of consistent, humble work. The emotional weight in the room grew heavier until the lights themselves seemed dimmer. The director noticed from across the room. The script supervisor noticed. The camera assistants noticed. Even the new interns, who barely understood the tension, felt something deep in their bones whispering, "This isn't normal. This isn't okay. This is going to get worse." But the moment that turned discomfort into disbelief didn't come from Meghan's words. It came from her expression afterward. Because after delivering the last insult, after seeing Lily struggle to hold herself together, Meghan smiled. Not a warm smile. Not a reassuring smile. Not an "oops, I went too far" smile. It was a tiny, almost imperceptible smirk. A smirk that told an entire story. A smirk that said, "Good. I meant every word. Let this sink in. Know your place." Lily's breath hitched, almost imperceptibly, but enough that those close by noticed. Her fingers curled into her script pages, wrinkling the edges. Someone took a step forward, as if to intervene, but froze, because how do you interrupt something like this without escalating it? And that's when it happened. The moment that would later be retold by nearly everyone on set. The moment that changed the energy from uncomfortable to explosive. The director called for positions. It was time for rehearsal. Time for Lily and Meghan to deliver lines together. Lines that required emotional depth, vulnerability, connection. How ironic. How painfully, cruelly ironic. Lily walked toward her mark, her steps slow, deliberate, trying desperately to regain composure. She inhaled deeply, steadying her voice, ready to pretend everything was fine. Because she was a professional. Because she respected the craft. Because she didn't want anyone to suffer delays because of her emotions. But Meghan? Meghan took her mark with the confidence of someone who believed she controlled the entire narrative. Her posture straight, her chin lifted, her shoulders back. She radiated superiority. And that superiority seeped into the room like poison, invisible but potent. The first lines were supposed to be delivered with empathy, warmth, trust. But the second Lily attempted to open her mouth, Meghan interrupted. Not with words, but with a facial expression so dismissive it stopped Lily mid-sentence. Meghan tilted her head, raised her eyebrow, curled her lip just slightly. The universal gesture of, "You're not doing it right." The room grew colder, the tension thicker, the dread heavier. Lily blinked slowly, trying to refocus. She began her line again. And that's when Meghan unleashed the sentence that sent shockwaves across the entire soundstage. She didn't yell. She didn't snap. She didn't look angry. She simply said, in a sweet tone dripping with false innocence, "Do you want me to show you how it's supposed to be done?" The room didn't just freeze. It stopped breathing, because everyone knew what that meant. It wasn't an offer. It was a declaration. "You're not good enough. You're beneath me. You need my help. I'm the star." Lily's eyes widened slightly. Her breath caught in her throat. Her chest tightened. And that was the moment the emotional structure holding her together finally collapsed. She turned. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply walked off the set. And the silence she left behind was louder than any explosion. But here's the twist. Walking off wasn't the dramatic moment. It was what she did next that sent the studio into crisis mode. Because Lily Collins didn't go to her trailer. She didn't go to makeup. She didn't go outside to take a breath. She went straight to Amazon MGM leadership. And what she told them would detonate the entire production. Have you ever watched someone self-destruct in real time? Not in a loud, chaotic way with screaming and broken furniture, but in a quiet, unnervingly calm way, where each decision pushes them deeper into a hole they don't even realize they're digging. That was the energy that wrapped itself around Meghan Markle the moment Lily Collins walked off set. Because instead of questioning herself, instead of pausing to consider the gravity of what had just unfolded, Instead of even taking a breath to reflect on the emotional shock she had delivered, Meghan did something no one saw coming. She doubled down. Hard. And that decision turned a tense situation into a full-scale disaster that would ripple through every department of the production. The moment Lily left the soundstage, a collective breath escaped from the crew. Part fear, part relief, part disbelief. People exchanged glances, wide-eyed, tense, lips pressed together as if afraid to speak the truth out loud. Because once an actor leaves the set mid-scene, especially someone as respected as Lily Collins, it's not just a personal decision. It's a statement, a declaration, a warning sign that something serious has happened. And while everyone sensed the emotional violence of the moment, no one knew how Meghan was going to react. Some expected her to look guilty. Others expected her to follow Lily. A few even expected her to take responsibility. But Meghan didn't do any of those things. Instead, she lifted her chin with an expression that wasn't guilt or fear or regret. It was irritation. Pure, unfiltered irritation. She rolled her shoulders back, crossed her arms, and let out a sharp breath as if she were the one wronged. As if Lily's departure was an overreaction. As if everyone else was being dramatic while she was simply being honest. Several crew members would later say they recognized the expression instantly. The expression of someone who believes they're being misunderstood rather than someone who has crossed a line. The director cautiously approached her, his tone calm, professionally measured. "Meghan," he said softly, "we need to talk about what just happened." And Meghan's response? Chilling in its dismissiveness. "There's nothing to talk about," she said, waving her hand like she was brushing away a minor inconvenience. "She's sensitive. It happens. Sensitive." That was the word Meghan chose. Not upset, not insulted, not humiliated. Sensitive. As if Lily weren't a respected actress, but a fragile intern who couldn't handle constructive criticism. As if the emotional impact of Meghan's comments wasn't her responsibility. As if professionalism was something she alone defined. But what made this even more painful to watch, almost surreal, was the contradiction in Meghan's tone. Because even as she dismissed Lily as sensitive, she simultaneously positioned herself as the real victim. "I'm trying to elevate this film," Meghan said stiffly. "Some people don't like being pushed out of their comfort zone. That's not my fault." Pushed out of their comfort zone. That's how Meghan framed it. Not a personal insult. Not a condescending remark. Not a direct attack on Lily's skill. But a push. A coaching moment. A favor, even. The director blinked slowly, clearly fighting the urge to respond emotionally. He wasn't just a director now. He was a crisis handler. He was navigating explosives with no protective gear. "Meghan," he said carefully, "the way you spoke to Lily came across differently than you think." Meghan scoffed. "Please," she said. "If she can't handle honesty, how is she supposed to handle Hollywood?" "I'm doing her a favor." A favor? She genuinely said she was doing Lily a favor. And that's when the temperature in the room changed again. Because until that moment, crew members were whispering, observing, processing. But now they were angry. Quietly angry. Professionally angry. The kind of anger that makes people start documenting things, marking timestamps in their phones, noting witnesses. The kind of anger that signals a shift from passively watching drama unfold to actively preparing for repercussions. But the escalation was far from over. Because Meghan, instead of calming down, instead of recognizing the storm forming around her, made a move that stunned even her closest team members. She demanded that the director rewrite the scene. Rewrite the scene. Rewrite the emotional beats. Rewrite the dynamic. Not because of creative vision. Not because of artistic insight. But because she felt Lily's energy was bringing the scene down. "I can't work with someone who doesn't know how to match what I'm giving," Meghan said sharply. "It throws off the entire balance." The director froze. Several crew members exhaled hard. Meghan's assistant looked like she wanted to melt into the floor. Because this wasn't just criticism. This wasn't just frustration. This was an actor openly trying to dismantle the collaborative structure of the film. This was ego trumping professionalism. This was Meghan placing herself above the script, above the director, above the entire production. And the timing couldn't have been worse, because at that exact moment, Lily wasn't just cooling off or stepping outside for air. She was in the office of Amazon MGM Studios leadership, and she was telling them everything. But Meghan didn't know that yet. In her mind, she was still shaping the narrative, still controlling the situation, still determining who looked weak and who looked strong. She believed, with unsettling confidence, that Lily's reaction was temporary, that she would come back, that she would apologize, that she would fall back into place. But that belief was shattered 5 minutes later when a production assistant rushed in, pale-faced, voice trembling slightly as she approached the director. "Lily went to leadership," she whispered. The director closed his eyes for a moment. He knew what that meant. He knew the gravity of it. He knew this wasn't salvageable with a quick mediation. Meghan, however, smiled. "Well," she said casually, "if she wants to escalate it, that's her choice. I'll explain my side." Her side. The version she had already crafted in her head. The version that painted her as the honest, straightforward professional, and Lily as the fragile, insecure actress who took things personally. Meghan didn't rush to leadership. She didn't attempt to clarify. She didn't express concern. She simply continued rehearsing alone, pacing the set, mumbling lines, occasionally muttering criticisms of Lily's delivery under her breath. She doesn't commit. She's too soft. She didn't prepare enough. She relies on sympathy instead of skill. Her assistant repeatedly tried to pull her aside, offering whispered advice like, "Maybe we should pause," and "Meghan, this is getting serious," and "we should talk privately." But Meghan brushed her off every single time. Because in her mind, she wasn't the problem. Everyone else was. And that's when things took the most unexpected turn of all. Lily didn't just report the incident. She provided details, specifics, quotes, context. She explained the stylist's comments. She explained the insults. She explained the tone. She explained the pattern. And leadership listened. Intently. Seriously. With increasing concern. They didn't just hear Lily's words, they believed them. And while Meghan was still rehearsing on set, leadership began contacting crew members one by one. Quietly, discreetly, strategically, to ask what they had witnessed. And every person told the same story. By the time Meghan realized the severity of the situation, it was too late. Because leadership wasn't calling her in for a conversation. They were preparing to confront her. And that confrontation would change the entire trajectory of the film. Because Meghan didn't walk into a conversation. She walked into consequences. Have you ever witnessed a moment where someone walks into a room completely unaware that the ground beneath them is about to crack open? Where their confidence is so high, their certainty so unshakable, that they don't even see the warning signs everyone else is staring at in disbelief. That was Meghan Markle as she marched straight toward the production office after hearing, finally, that Amazon MGM leadership wanted to meet with her. She didn't go in nervous. She didn't go in humble. She didn't go in ready to listen. She went in ready to command, ready to frame her narrative, ready to explain why she was the one being mistreated. But what she didn't realize, what she couldn't possibly have known, was that the leadership team already had details. They already had witness accounts. They already had context. And they already had Lily's version of the story, delivered clearly, calmly, and painfully. Meghan wasn't walking into a negotiation. She was walking into a storm she herself had created. The hallway leading to the conference room felt suffocatingly tense. A production assistant pacing nearby kept glancing at her phone, trying to look busy but failing miserably as she watched Meghan approach with long, self-assured strides. Two crew members exchanged quiet glances as Meghan passed, glances that said everything: disbelief, nerves, exhaustion. Because no matter how professional a set is, no matter how experienced the team, there is always that collective awareness when a situation is about to erupt. The energy shifts, the air thickens, and people start mentally preparing for impact. Meghan's assistant hurried alongside her, whispering frantically, "Just try to stay calm. They've spoken to people. They have information." But Meghan waved her off with a light, irritated gesture. "I'm not going to panic over Lily being dramatic," Meghan said. "Leadership will understand. They know I'm here to elevate this production." Elevate. There it was again. The word she used earlier. The word loaded with superiority, implication, and ego. But now it sounded even more out of place, like someone calling themselves the hero of a story the audience has already realized is a tragedy. When Meghan reached the conference room, she didn't hesitate. She opened the door briskly and stepped inside. The room was quiet, too quiet. 3 executives sat at the table, their expressions composed but serious. The director was there too, arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes heavy with fatigue. A human resources representative stood in the corner with a tablet in hand, already prepared for official documentation if necessary. It was the kind of room you walk into only when something significant has gone wrong. "Meghan," the lead executive said, offering a polite but tense nod. "Please sit." Her confidence didn't waver. If anything, she straightened her posture. She sat down with the elegance of someone attending a press interview, not a disciplinary meeting. She smiled faintly. "Of course. I understand Lily brought something to your attention, and I think it's important we talk through it." The executive folded his hands. "She did, and we want to hear your perspective. But before that, we need to make sure you understand that multiple people were present, and multiple people have given consistent accounts." A flicker, a small one, finally passed through Meghan's eyes. Not fear, not remorse, but annoyance. She inhaled. "I see. Well, I want to be very clear about what happened. Lily misinterpreted a coaching moment. I was giving her guidance, nothing more. Sometimes actors, especially those still developing, take feedback personally. But I said nothing harmful. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing harmful." Those words were met with stillness. Not acceptance. Not agreement. Just silence. The HR representative tapped her tablet. "Meghan, several witnesses described your comments as condescending, personal, and dismissive. They indicated that your tone suggested derogatory intention." Meghan didn't flinch. "Tone is subjective," she said. "We're in an emotional industry. She's emotional. I'm direct. That's all this is." The director leaned forward then. Slowly, deliberately. "Meghan, you didn't just give feedback. You undermined her. You questioned her ability. You questioned her place on this set. And you did so in front of an entire room of professionals." Meghan stiffened, her jaw tightening. If she can't handle directness, I don't know how she expects to work in this industry. I was trying to help her. The lead executive raised a brow. "Are you certain that's what you were doing?" "Yes," Meghan said firmly. "Absolutely." It was the unwavering confidence that stunned everyone. Because even in the face of overwhelming witness accounts, even knowing Lily was visibly hurt, even seeing the tension ripple through the entire cast and crew, Meghan didn't budge an inch. She doubled down again. She insisted she was right. She insisted Lily was fragile. She insisted her behavior was justified. And that's when one of the executives delivered the blow Meghan didn't expect. "Meghan," he said, voice calm but icy. "This wasn't a conversation about feedback. It was a conversation about respect. And what we're hearing doesn't reflect respectful collaboration." The room fell into a weighted silence. The first real crack appeared in Meghan's expression. A tiny one, barely visible, but it was there. She sat back slightly, her composure wavering just long enough for the HR representative to step in. "Given the accounts we've received," HR said carefully, "we need to evaluate whether this behavior is part of a larger pattern. And to do that, we need transparency." A pulse of irritation flashed in Meghan's eyes. "A pattern? Are you implying this is something I regularly do?" "We're stating," HR said, maintaining eye contact, "that this is not the first report of tension related to your interactions on set." Meghan blinked. Once. Twice. A beat of disbelief. "Who reported that?" The executive spoke before HR could. "We're not here to discuss names. We're here to address the environment on set." Meghan's composure snapped, not loudly, not dramatically, but sharply. "This is ridiculous. I'm being held responsible for other people's insecurities." The director leaned forward. "No, you're being held responsible for your words." The room grew colder. That was the moment Meghan stopped defending and started attacking. "Well," she said, "maybe the issue isn't me. Maybe the issue is that the script is flawed. Maybe the roles aren't balanced. Maybe certain characters," her voice sharpened, "aren't written strongly enough to stand next to mine." The executives exchanged looks. The director inhaled sharply. HR began typing rapidly. And then Meghan said the sentence, "The demand." That turned the meeting into a crisis. "I want rewrites," she said. "Significant rewrites. My character needs stronger emotional beats, and Lily's role needs to be adjusted accordingly." She's not prepared for the scenes as they are. The imbalance is hurting the film. No one spoke. No one moved. No one blinked. Because the demand wasn't just audacious, it was dangerous. Rewrite Lily's role. Make her smaller. Make Meghan bigger. Shift the narrative. Shift the power. In other words, if Lily can't match me, remove her from my level. It was a demand soaked in ego, insecurity, and power play, one that exposed everything Meghan had been trying to hide. And in that split second, Amazon MGM leadership saw something they could never unsee. Meghan Markle wasn't trying to collaborate. She was trying to dominate. The lead executive cleared his throat. His expression hardened. His voice dropped into a tone no one dared challenge. Meghan, the only imbalance on this set is the one you are creating. Silence. Thick. Dangerous. Suffocating. Meghan opened her mouth to respond, but the executive raised his hand. No rewrites, he said sharply. No character adjustments. No restructuring. What we do need is immediate behavioral course correction. Alternatively, his sentence trailed off deliberately. Alternatively, a single word that said everything without saying anything. Alternatively, we recast. Alternatively, we remove you. Alternatively, this project continues without you. Meghan's face paled. Just slightly. Just enough for everyone to notice. And then, before she could respond, a knock rattled the conference room door. A production assistant